Let's talk about something that sounds, well, completely impossible. Imagine a business selling a product, but instead of making a profit, they actually lose money on the sale. It's like an economic black hole, right? But in the summer of 2024, this is exactly what started happening all over China's massive food delivery market. In this explainer, we're going to unravel how a crazy corporate war led to this absurd situation, and we're going to ask the big question: who is really paying the price? This question, right here, it comes from a young ice cream shop owner in Shanghai. We'll just call her Xiao A. And it's what she asked herself one day when she was looking at her sales numbers, and she saw something that just didn't add up. Her discovery is what grounds this huge, complicated story in one single, unbelievable moment for a small business. And this is what she saw: a receipt with a negative number on it. That's not profit, that's a loss. On one order, her shop had literally paid a customer to take her ice cream. This number isn't a metaphor, it's a real financial entry, a real loss that crystallizes just how bizarre this price war had become. So how on earth does that happen? Well, let's go back to Zhao A. She's only 18 years old, and she co-owns this small ice cream shop on a busy street in Shanghai. Life was pretty normal, pretty relaxed, until July. That's when her online orders suddenly exploded, doubling to over 100 a day. You'd think that would be amazing news, right? But then that negative number showed up, and her world got turned completely upside down. You see, Zhao A's negative profit order wasn't some kind of accounting error or a glitch in the system. No, it was a direct result of a massive battle between China's biggest tech giants. We're talking about JD.com, Meituan, and Alibaba, which runs the Elle.me and Taobao platforms. These companies basically decided to go to war for total control of the food delivery market, and they chose a very simple, very expensive weapon: cash. The whole thing really ignited back in April 2024. JD.com jumps into the market with this huge subsidy plan, basically just throwing billions of dollars at people to get them to use their app. Well, the existing giants, Meituan and Alibaba, couldn't just sit back and watch that happen. They had to respond. By July, the whole situation had escalated into an all-out cash burn war, with all three companies just bleeding money to offer these unbelievable deals. And when I say cash burn, the scale of it's staggering. Goldman Sachs put out some estimates for the year ahead, and get this: Alibaba is projected to lose 41 billion yuan. That's almost $6 billion US dollars on its food delivery business. JD.com could lose 26 billion. And even the market leader, Meituan, is expected to see its profits drop by 25 billion yuan. These are titans locked in a fight where it looks like everybody is losing billions. But the platforms, they're not the only ones paying. The first group that gets caught right in the crossfire are the merchants. You know, the actual restaurants and shops. They're trapped in a war they didn't start, a war they can't afford to fight, but also a war they can't afford to leave. So how did Xiao A end up with a negative profit? It all comes down to this little mechanism, sometimes called the Platform 3 Merchant 7 split. Here's how it works. When a customer gets a 10 yuan coupon, the delivery platform only pays for 3 yuan of it. The other 7 yuan, that gets taken directly out of the merchant's earnings. And that's the key. The shops themselves are being forced to fund the vast majority of the discounts that are driving this entire war. And as Xiao A points out, it's not like they have a choice. If a shop owner says, "No thanks, I'm opting out of these promotions," the platform's algorithm can basically make them invisible. Their store just vanishes from the app's main page. Their traffic dries up. So it's this impossible choice. Either participate and lose money, or don't participate and lose your entire business. And the result on the ground is it's brutal. The workload has exploded. A milk tea shop near Xiao A went from making 400 drinks a day to over 1,000. But because of that subsidy squeeze, their income is flat, or in some cases, it's even gone down. The staff is pushed to the absolute limit, with as little as 30 seconds to make a drink during rush hour, all for maybe a few extra bucks a day. As Xiao puts it, her creative job has been boiled down to one single endless task. We're just wrapping insulation boxes from the moment our eyes open. So the pressure builds on the shops, and then it flows right down the chain to the delivery riders. The people on the scooters who are the public face of this whole system. They're on the absolute front lines, navigating a high-volume, high-risk race against the clock. Now, at first, many of the riders saw this flood of orders as a golden opportunity. I mean, it makes sense, right? More orders should mean more money. The apps were constantly buzzing, and the initial feeling was excitement. This was their big chance to cash in. But the reality, as a 45-year-old rider in Beijing named Liu describes it, turned out to be very different. Sure, his daily orders jumped from around 60 to over 100, but the payment he got for each individual delivery went down. So even though he was working way harder and rushing around like a madman, his total income, it barely moved. The promise of a big payday was just an illusion. And this setup forces the riders into a really dangerous gamble. If you want any chance of actually increasing your pay, you have to chase volume. And the only way to deliver more orders is to save time, which, you know what that means. It often means running red lights, driving the wrong way down one-way streets, and taking more and more risks. The system basically incentivizes dangerous behavior for just a shot at a slightly bigger paycheck. The human toll is just immense. Xiao A noticed that the riders coming to her shop were just visibly stressed out, angry even. That sense of community they used to have was gone. And all over China, reports were surging of riders suffering from heat stroke, getting into accidents, just being pushed to their absolute physical and mental breaking points. The system has squeezed every last drop of humanity out of the job. Okay, so if the shops are losing money and the riders are overworked for stagnant pay, who is winning? Well, on the surface, it seems like it's the consumer. I mean, they're getting food for next to nothing, sometimes literally for free. But as we're about to see, even this win comes with its own really strange and wasteful paradox. This quote right here, from one consumer's niece, it captures the mindset perfectly. The deals were so good, it felt irresponsible not to take advantage. This is the culture of Hao Young Mao, which literally means grabbing the sheep's wool. It's a popular phrase for aggressively hunting down the best deals. And this culture drove people to order things they didn't even want or need. And this leads to some truly absurd consequences. People were stockpiling so much cheap food and drink that a lot of it just ended up in the trash. Shops were reporting dozens of ghost orders a day, these super cheap drinks that were paid for but never picked up, so they just had to pour them down the drain. You had people standing right outside a store, placing a delivery order on their phone because the app discount made it cheaper than just walking in and buying it. It's like a modern version of farmers dumping milk during the Great Depression, but this time, it's not to protect prices, it's to wage a war for market share. There's a term for this kind of irrational, self-defeating conflict that's become really popular in China. Neizhuan, or involution. It perfectly describes a situation where everyone gets locked into this frantic, competitive spiral. They're all spending huge amounts of energy and resources just to stay in the same place, or in some cases, even to fall behind. It is a competition with zero progress, only exhaustion. And it is the perfect word for this entire price war. And so we end right back where we started, with that piercing question from 18-year-old Xiao Ai. After the platforms burn through billions of dollars, and the shops and the riders have paid the price in stress and lost income, what happens next? These subsidies can't last forever, so when this absurd farce is finally over, won't the platforms just turn the knife on the consumers and hike the prices up to get their money back? If every single person in this chain seems to be losing, her question just hangs there. Who actually benefited from any of this?